Right here in the Rise News channel. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. The Central Bank of Nigeria yesterday, CBN, directed commercial banks and other financial institutions in the country to continue to accept and pay out the old 200, 500 and 1,000 naira notes till December 31st, 2023, in line with the recent Supreme Court ruling. In a statement signed by CBN's acting Director Corporate Communication, Dr. Isa Abdulmumil, the central bank disclosed that it had met with Bankers Committee and directed that the old banknotes remain legal tender along the redesigned notes. But an apparent reaction to the public unease over federal government's long silence and delayed response to the March 3 Supreme Court ruling on the currency redesign, the presidency yesterday said the CBN did not need a further directive from President Muhammadu Buhari to comply with the Apex court order. The presidency said this in a statement by presidential spokesperson Malam Garba Shehu. Relatedly, the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, yesterday gave the federal government a one-week ultimatum to resolve the present scarcity of both naira and petrol, which had caused untold hardship to the masses or faced nationwide strikes. In another development, CBN Governor Mr. Godwin Emefiele described as fake news a report that he had launched a fresh plot against the president-elect, Bola Tinubu. A lot to chew on this morning, Ayo.
Yes, I'm trying to see which to stay on and then the others to just allow for Dr. Bati and yourself to take on. But very quickly, can I say, finally, we've gotten this directive that a number of Nigerians have been waiting for, particularly from the CBN. It's interesting that despite the ruling of the Supreme Court on the 3rd of March, 2023, that's about 10 days from today, some people were still reluctant to collect or accept the old notes or trade in the old notes. In fact, there had been talks around even banks rejecting collecting or a deposit of the old notes because they hadn't gotten perhaps that express direction from the CBN. So this is fantastic, excellent that the CBN has come up with this directive. But beyond that is also the impact that it's had on Nigerians in terms of this scarcity of notes. So what we're hoping to see in the next few days following this directive is that we'll have more naira in circulation, we'll have reduction in the queues, and of course, as the NLC has put it, a total eradication or perhaps reduction of the hardship, untold hardship on Nigerians. However, one of the things I must say, Rufai, is that this directive or the naira redesign policy actually there was a window, an opportunity there that I hope we will not lose. Now we have access. So as you mentioned, the main story is that until the 31st of December 2023, both old and new notes will work side by side, would be legal tender side by side. But the opportunity this presents is that in the last 3 months, when following the introduction of the new naira notes and initially before the court had ruled on the 3rd of March, Nigerians had begun to embrace using other payment methods. And it further deepened the CBN cashless policy, whereby we were able to use, I shared the story of how even in traffic, you'd be making transfers. I don't know if it's legal to even buy stuff in traffic, but as we see often when you buy plantain or things on the road, people started accepting transfers. We saw, food sellers, tomato, you'd go to, and more people opened bank accounts. More people embraced using technology, USSD payment, online transfers, e-naira. So it gave that opportunity. In fact, the banks were so burdened that they were not able to manage it. We had a number of failed transactions. By the way, I hope the banks will begin to reverse those transactions because some of them haven't. Had a transaction from December that has not been reversed until now. Whoa. So yes, and I'm not the only one. A number of people have complained about that because they were burdened. But I want us to see the opportunity here. The CBN has given the directive. We go back to using the old naira notes and the new naira notes. But please, let's not wait till December to begin to scramble again and say that we need more time. I believe that this gives us an opportunity we should embrace and not let go of. So the habits we have inculcated, whereby we had less notes on us and we relied more on technology, let us continue. And then the onus is on the banks and mobile companies to build the infrastructure to be able to accommodate the number of people who want to use technology as a means of transaction or transferring money. So again, like I mentioned, I won't touch on the other stories because of time, but I'll just say that I'm glad that this has finally happened. We're looking forward to seeing less reduction in queues. Please, can we make this information, and this is what we're doing today, very loud and so that people can hear it and begin to accept the older notes as legal tender. And very important, please, let's not lose the gains we've gotten from the last 3 months.
Dr. Bati?
What is the context of this conversation? The Supreme Court of Nigeria ruled on March 3rd, state governments having gone to the Supreme Court to say, look, we are aggrieved parties in this matter. We have issues with the Naira redesign policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And that we do not think that it is fair for the operations of the states or to the citizens of our states. On March 3, the Supreme Court overruled the Central Bank of Nigeria and said that all the old notes, regardless of what the President of Nigeria said previously about the old 200 Naira notes, should be effective, should remain legal tender till December 31. The Supreme Court also ruled that the Central Bank of Nigeria should make enough notes available by ensuring the printing of new notes so that both the old notes and the new notes can exist side by side. The Supreme Court further said that it was basing its ruling on the fact that the CBN did not give the people of Nigeria enough notice. The Supreme Court is the apex court, is the court of final resort. You can argue back and forth, whichever way you think, as a civil society activist, but the Supreme Court is the apex court. And what it has said clearly, what it has reestablished, I keep saying it on this program, is that the Central Bank of Nigeria is a federal government agency. And it is bound by the laws of the land. So that's the background. Now the context. The context now is that it has taken the Central Bank of Nigeria a whole week or more to come out publicly to declare that, oh, it abides by the rule of law. Why must it take the Central Bank of Nigeria more than a week? Because the ruling of the Supreme Court is final. Section 287 of the 1999 Constitution says that anything that comes from our courts must be obeyed because we operate a rule of law regime and a democratic dispensation. Nobody is above the laws of the land. However, the Central Bank of Nigeria, in being tardy, hesitant in coming out publicly to address the ruling of the Supreme Court, created a situation whereby the banks were confused. The banks refused to give old notes as directed by the Supreme Court. Most of the banks did not even open their doors. Most of them even said, until they heard from the Central Bank of Nigeria, they will not act. It got to a ridiculous situation whereby state governors were beginning to act as governors of the central bank. They kept saying in many states, in Lagos, in Ogun, and elsewhere, in Kaduna, that people should go ahead and spend the old notes because the Supreme Court has spoken. Some of them even spoke before the Supreme Court. So there's a subtext of politics out there. And then the CBN did not speak until the presidency issued a statement to say that, look, we have not told the AGF or the CBN or anybody ever since we assumed office in 2015 to disrespect court orders, to violate Section 287 of the 1999 Constitution. What President Muhammadu Buhari did in that regard was to throw all the officers who worked with him, who disobeyed the rule of law, who disobeyed court of orders. What he did was to disown them. That is the simple, common, intelligent interpretation. Now that the CBN, on the heels of that, now suddenly came out through Isa Abdulmumin, Director of Corporate Communications, to now issue the statement that we have been waiting for. Yesterday, I was saying that Soludo is not CBN governor. Not many people will rely on the hearsay from Governor Soludo of Anambra State, because he said, oh, a bankers committee meeting had been held. He also had a telephone conversation. Nigerians could not have relied on a telephone conversation. That would be hearsay. That would be busybody information. So what the CBN has now done is to offer us clarity. And I hope that the clarity will save the situation. The clarity would be a strong signal to the banks, and that the banks will not come around to say that the CBN, as the regulator, has not communicated to them. But do we need all of this confusion? Clearly, we do not. The average thinking, reasonable man is likely to think, oh, so now that the APC has won the presidency, and Bola Tinubu is the president-elect, now the All Progressives Congress, they are now having their way. What's his name? The governor of Kaduna State, Nasir Rufai, can now say, oh, okay, I told them, I showed them, we're in charge. And Tinubu can say, well, didn't I say this was about me? And now I've outsmarted them. Now, that kind of perception, that kind of thinking, how does it help Nigeria? Because people will just say, they take us for a ride. They do what they like with us. Nigeria is, as Wole Soyinka pointed out in one of his famous plays, an opera, want your CE. So if it is your time, you want your CE as you like. And the people are served the shortest end of the stick. This is where we are. This is the issue, in my view.
I'm a huge fan of Eric Cantona, Manchester United great. When he had his ordeal in the 90s, the hoo-ha Cantona saga, and he served his suspension, and journalists wanted to hear from him, he said something very profound. He said, when a seagull chases a trawler, it's because it thinks there are sardines in the water. And that's what is happening here. You figure out who's the seagull and the trawler and the sardine in this story. We all know how this started. All of this was politics, pure and simple. People had money they wanted to use for elections stuck in their homes, and a policy was made in the best interest of our currency because of mounting inflation, and these people did not like it, the politicians. And when they did not like it, they did everything possible. They accused the CBN governor of terrorism. They said all sorts. We all remember what happened at the airport because it was not rightly reported in the media, how he was tried to be picked up in the airport. All of that ordeal passed. They negotiated with the president. The president said, okay, I'll make concessions, give me some time. They felt, who is the president talking? So they disobeyed the president, and they went straight ahead to the courts. Even before the Supreme Court gave ruling, some of these governors were caught on camera saying, don't worry, they will rule in our favor. Was there something they knew that we did not know? And all of a sudden, yes, it came in their favor. We should respect the Supreme Court. And it's so easy for the presidency to come out and write letters that we did not say you should not respect the Supreme Court. Oh, yes. Just like they respected the Court of Appeal order to release Nnamdi Kanu. Just like they've also respected the courts on El Zakzaki's case. I think with that, it's so easy to cite convenience of insecurity in the country. But you see, we've set a precedence, and I hope we follow it through. Let's challenge the Supreme Court for everything because it favors us. As a bondholder, probably someday soon, when the CBN raises interest rates, I can probably look at some of my friends that are governors and say, please go to the courts on my behalf and arrange boys because my bonds are affected because of the increase in interest rates. I think we'll probably challenge that way. Since we now take everything, monetary policy, to the to the Supreme Court because of our political exigencies. That's the country we've become. Is this going to solve the problem? Time will tell. We have just deepened our confusion because of our political slants and what favors us. But please, politicians should remember that you build a country on the foundation of integrity, truth, and collective fairness. And most of the time about collective fairness, it will not work in your favor. And let's build this country to stand the test of time. You see, anybody that goes ahead to celebrate triumphalism, the question I'll ask you in the long scheme of things, what have you gained? The electoral body, INEC, is promising to release documents required by the Labour Party to prosecute its case challenging the outcome of presidential election INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu met with the legal team of the Labour Party at its headquarters in Abuja. Rice correspondent Sujan Lanipeku compiled this report.
It's been 10 days since the Court of Appeal granted the Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi, access to all the sensitive materials used by the Independent National Electoral Commission for the conduct of the February 25 presidential election. This is to allow him prosecute his case of challenging the election effectively, but he is yet to gain access to the INEC materials, which has led to a lot of agitation among his supporters. This is why the legal team of the Labour Party is at the headquarters of INEC to meet with the leadership of the Commission. The team was received by INEC Chairman Mahmood Yakubu. After deliberations, the Commission promised to provide the Labour Party with all required documents.
In the letter, we were served notice that the team will be here on the 7th at 9 in the morning to inspect the materials. But most specifically, the letter requested us to get in touch with our resident electoral commissioners across the 37 states of the Federation to make the documents and information available.
INEC Chairman, however, said there are some documents at the state headquarters of the Commission and will require extra efforts to get them to the Labour Party's legal team.
A meeting has been scheduled with all the resident electoral commissioners. It's going to be a virtual meeting at 3 p.m. today, at which we'll discuss, among other issues, this matter of providing CTCs not only to the Labour Party, but to all other litigants as well. I want to assure you that the Commission will not hide any document from anybody and will make any document that they have requested.
Lead counsel to the Labour Party, Levi Uzuku, says he's hopeful that INEC will obey the orders of the court and make the documents available to his team.
We have not received any electoral document from INEC that will enable us to file petition on behalf of our clients. And as you all know, election petition is time sensitive. We have 21 days to file petition on behalf of our clients. Out of that 21 days, we probably have about 10 days to go. And up till now, we have not received any documents, less than 10 days.
What will be the next step if INEC fails to release the documents to meet up with the timing of the Labour Party legal team?
That will be a national calamity. Why do I say that? Not making the documents available will create the impression that INEC is deliberately frustrating us. That's just the impression it will create, to make sure that we cannot prosecute this petition. But listening to the chairman a short while ago and all the assurances, I want to give him, or we want to give him, the benefit of the doubt.
He has assured the team of lawyers that they are going to present those documents. So we want to wait and see the responses of our legal team. It is the legal team that will give us the matching order when they are satisfied with what they've received from INEC, so that our members nationwide and worldwide will be satisfied that we are doing our job and they are ready to prosecute this case.
With the promise of fairness and transparency by INEC to the Labour Party and other political parties, Nigerians are looking forward to an interesting legal battle ahead.
All right, a lot to chat about, Ayo.
Yes, I'll make a very quick statement on this one because excellent report there and the details, of course, still unfolding. But one of the things I must say is that it was quite disappointing to hear from the Labour Party candidate yesterday that as at the time he was with us, INEC hadn't yet allowed them access to the materials that the court had ordered should be made available to them. And as you saw with the lead counsel there, Justice, Mr. Uzoku, Levi Uzoku, he said the limitations in terms of the time to file an election petition, and this is quite critical to their case. They need to be able to observe the materials and then make judgment based on, or build a case based on what they see as perhaps irregularities. What we're asking INEC to do, and I'm glad that the chairman of INEC was on screen there. You saw him, he spoke, he has given assurances that they would give to all the parties in question access to these documents. What Nigerians are asking for is for INEC to be fair, to play fair, and to ensure that they obey the rulings of the court. When Dr. Bati was speaking earlier, I'm glad that he touched on the part of the rule of law and how this has been handled, particularly in this administration. And I'll end by just quoting Justice Emmanuel Egwim when he was speaking during the ruling of the 3rd of March 2023 on obeying the rule of law. He said the rule of law upon which our democratic governance is founded becomes illusory if the president of the country or any authority or person refuses to obey the orders of court. I'll end there. But very importantly, we have to be seen and be people who recognize and obey the rule of law. INEC, please do the right thing so that the parties in question can view the materials.
Obeying the rule of law is a constitutional matter. I quoted earlier on Section 287. If you don't obey what the courts of the land say, then you are guilty of contempt. Contempt can be in two forms. Contempt in facie curia, that is in the face of the court. Contempt ex facie curia, that is contempt away from the face of the court. Now, what INEC is faced with is the likely charge of choosing, cherry-picking, being selective, in terms of what order of court that it will obey. That is not acceptable. On March 3, and subsequently, I think on March 7, the Wednesday that followed March 3, the court ruled that INEC must allow the principal parties to the suit before the Presidential Election Party Petition Tribunal access to election materials. To wit, PDP, Labour Party, and also the candidate of the All Progressives Congress acting in self-defense. They are also to be allowed access to data in the back-end server. They are also to be allowed access to certified true copies, CTCs, of the data. Now, INEC got for itself a judgment allowing it to reconfigure BVAS. What Labour Party is saying is that as of this moment, INEC is obeying the ruling on the reconfiguration of the BVAS. It is not listening to the court order in other respects. That's cherry picking. It's unacceptable. It is a violation of Section 287 of the Constitution. However, the INEC chairman told the Labour Party lawyers yesterday, 60 of them, led by Levi Uzoku SAN, that, INEC will cooperate, INEC will do everything. But the other issue that the learned SAN, the learned Silk pointed out, was that election matters are sui generis. They are time-bound. Out of the 21 days available to the Labour Party and the other party, 10 days have already gone. INEC will claim that it is preparing to organize elections on March 18. When is it going to allow access and obey the court order? And it has not gone back to the court to tell the court that it has difficulties. So we face a very difficult constitutional, likely, let me put it like that, constitutional crisis. And INEC has to know that the burden upon it, despite the fact that it has the presumption of regularity, is a very serious one. Labour Party, in consequence, through Dr. Tanko, Yunusa Tanko, who was the last person that showed up on the video, has already said Labour Party will go to the streets and protest all the way to INEC headquarters offices nationwide. I don't think the matter should get to that. INEC should tell us what the truth is. If INEC has difficulties, let it go back to the court. It is not in a position to violate Section 287. Now that President Buhari is saying anybody that violates the rule of law is on his own. Since 2015, he has no hand in it. And it has no powers given to it under the laws of the land to cherry pick which laws of the land it can respect as an institution.
But why are we all making bones and sweat about INEC violating the rule of law INEC that couldn't follow its own regulations and guidelines that it wrote by itself, and now is violating the court order. It just shows that the country is lawless. This same INEC that people complained that was supposed to review presidential election results by the commission that didn't do anything, and you expect them not to cherry pick? Please, let's stop deceiving ourselves. It's not today we've been cherry picking. In fact, we've become more cherry than pickers. That's who we've become. It just shows the grand hypocrisy that happens in this country. The same INEC can run to the courts to reconfigure beavers, but can also ignore the court order. But you see, we forget history so much, and I think that's why we're having problems in this country. The fact that we think that it is today things went bad as regards the rule of law and judiciary, we forget. Sorry, I'm going to quote Fela again. People say I quote Fela too much. When Fela said judge they beg in the 80s, how a judge charged Fela, and we know what happened in that case. So let's not surprise ourselves. INEC doesn't respect the rule of law. It's as simple as that. Because like the INEC chairman claimed that we've got nothing to hide. If you have nothing to hide, by now they should be inspecting all the materials. It just shows to a large extent that the fidelity of those materials are already suspects. And it will take a lot of convincing for INEC to say otherwise. But I'm not surprised. An institution that couldn't abide by the own guidelines it did right. Will you think we abide by a court order? That's a big question. An institution that couldn't abide by its own guidelines, do you think will abide by a court order?